First off, hi everybody. This is Visibox Office Hours. We do this every month and kind of get some people together on a voice channel and on Discord. If you can figure out Discord to make it through to the voice channel, we're here, and we just kind of talk to whoever shows up and talk kind of about whatever people want to talk about. Keep people updated about the new features in Visibox and what's happening. If you're watching this after the fact or new here. Visibox is available at spaceage.tv is the website, and you can find out all about Visibox there. Visibox is an application, a tool for musicians and other types of performers to help them control video and other types of visuals on stage. We just released Visibox 5.0 last month, and it's got lots of great new features, including shader-style visuals, sort of more conventional VJ-style visuals, in addition to all the video stuff that we are so good at controlling. But we also added a complete API and an MCP for you AI users, and the MCP can basically control just about all of Visibox, including setting up your projects, rearranging your clips, and also you can use AI to generate visualizers, the new shader style visualizers, which are a specific type of art to understand the technology to create those, and it turns out that AI is really good at them, and so you can just wire up your Claude desktop app or OpenAI's Codex or other tools, and you can find information about all of that on our website. We also regularly post articles and all types of content to our website to help people understand the often specific world of stage visuals and understanding things like video projectors and video walls and multi-channel audio output backing tracks and all that kind of stuff that gets complicated really fast, and we want to make it easy both in the app and just sort of easy to find the information. How do you output stem files from your DAW so that you can create multi-channel audio files from them? That's the kind of information that we post on the website. And today we've invited a friend and a guest to come visit. Brian Hardgroove is a longtime performer, musician with experience performing on stages large and small, and is probably best known as the musical director of Public Enemy. He started out with the band 25 years ago, something like that, playing bass as the music director, and recently rejoined as the drummer. It is now drumming with Public Enemy. And Brian and I connected, a few years back through a mutual friend, and he was looking to do some visual stuff, and we collaborated a little bit. But most recently, we did the NAMM show together. There was a session that was an interview with Brian, and we basically put together a lot of bio content. I joke it's the footage from the Brian Hardgroove documentary that has yet to be made, and we were able to sort of trigger that reactively and in real time as part of this NAMM presentation, using Visibox and a Stream Deck and some stuff like that. And so, first of all, Brian, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you. Where are you talking to us from?
From Santa Fe, New Mexico, Colorado, the Rocky Mountains, which is why I have my jacket on. We have a serious overcast today, so it gets cold here
Yeah.
when we have overcast.
Well, you're
But
in the
yeah,
desert, so when it gets cold, it gets cold. Yeah.
yeah,
Right on.
Santa Fe,
Cool.
New Mexico.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Where should we start this conversation? I think, Visibox users are certainly interested in audio visual stuff, but performing in general. And, talk to us a little bit about, I guess we could start with Public Enemy. How did you get involved with them? How did you end up as the music director? And then I'm curious to kind of talk about what performing with Public Enemy is like.
Yeah, I'll give you the real short version of it. I was playing with a band in Manhattan that did shows on Long Island at various times. And there was a gentleman in the audience at one of the places we played on Long Island. His name was Kyle Jason, who's a singer, really good singer. And he saw the band. And from the stage, the band would always say where we were headquartered at. We were headquartered at a big studio in New York called Manhattan Center Studios, which also had a famous, has now a famous performance space called the Hammerstein Ballroom. So I was playing bass in that band, and a couple of weeks after that, this singer Kyle Jason, who was in the audience, he reached out to Bruce Mack, who was the president of the Black Rock Coalition. I don't know if he found that I was attached to the BRC or not, but Bruce, being a good friend of mine, then contacted me at the studio, and he said, "Well, this guy Kyle Jason who wants to get in contact with you. He saw you at Fast Eddie's, and he's got a deal with Chuck D. He's got a label deal with Chuck. Chuck had a deal with Columbia at the time." So that was immediate interest to me because I was, I consider myself one of the biggest Public Enemy fans, and so Kyle and I got together, and he hired me to play bass for a short tour he was doing in the Midwest, opening up for Frankie Beverly and Maze. We did that, and then very shortly after that, just kind of broke up the band. Things were not happening for him with the label. I think he had some conflict with them, and then next thing we knew, no one was hearing from him. And so I stayed in contact with the band members and said, "Hey, this is a great band," because he assembled a stellar band. And I said to everyone, "Look, this is a great band. I've got a studio in Manhattan. Why don't we just stay together and just record some stuff? Let's create a band ourselves." And they were way into that. And as we started doing that, I reached back out to Kyle because we had developed enough of a relationship at that point. And he ended up joining that band because the situation at Columbia was pretty bad, I think. And so we'd recorded there for a while. And then I finally got to meet Chuck through him. And then Chuck had some other outside project he wanted to do with Kyle and Professor Griff. And then they needed a band. They asked me to join that band. It was called Confrontation Camp. We did an album for Atomic Pop, I think the name of the label was, Danny Goldberg's label. We did an album that should have been better produced. And Atomic Pop didn't go anywhere with it. I don't know why. That was probably not good communication between the act and the label, and what the label thought they'd get the band to do versus what the band was willing to do, because that's been a kind of a recurring theme over the years. But so anyway, that didn't work. But during that time, Chuck was able to see how I operated, how I worked, and I'm sure he my professionalism was very clear to him. And so he called me up one night at the studio and said, uh, I'm looking to create a live band element for Public Enemy. Would you be interested in being the bass player and the band leader? So I thought about it for 30 seconds. I said, yeah, you know. And so that's how I got that gig. Okay. And, you know, and that even in that time before he asked me and he was able to see what I was capable of, it was very clear to him that I was a Public Enemy fan. And that I understood Public Enemy's production style. That was really key. You couldn't have just anybody being the band leader for that group. You couldn't have just anybody playing in it because they had to understand that some things are out of tune, some things are out of time, and you do have to support that because it was half band and half playback.
Mm.
You know, we were most of the show were playing with playback under us. And so things weren't always A440, you know, or hitting right on the one, you know. But he needed some. He got lucky. Chuck got lucky that I showed up. Him wanting to do that, or maybe me showing up is why he wanted to do it. I don't know. But if he was looking to do that, he got lucky finding me because I
Yeah.
knew how those records worked. And I was starting to do productions like that.
Yeah.
And so I brought that into the rehearsals, you know.
Talk,
So,
talk, I'm curious about that half band, half playback. So, PE's kind of been through different phases over time. I mean, were they just playback when they first started?
yeah,
Yeah, and the DJ was controlling that, right?
yeah.
But there were samplers on stage. I remember seeing them on like Saturday Night Live with these, just racks of Akai samplers and stuff. Who knows what was
I,
actually coming out the speakers? But
yeah,
you know,
I thought that any of that was being
yeah,
used, though.
yeah. So, so adding a live band into something that's playback like that, like, how does that work? Like, was there click track? Was it multi? Like, what were you hearing when you stepped on stage with the bass all those years ago?
Yeah, no click track then, and none now.
Yeah,
And we, and that's why I'm saying he was really lucky to get somebody who knew what the records did.
yeah,
So um, some things would shift in time inside the track, but sometimes there were things that you really didn't have to play to. It was just how because those things shifted in the recording against perfect time, so you didn't
right.
have to
Yeah, I mean,
emphasize.
the samples oftentimes are imperfect. The original drum sample wasn't even exactly four measures, or whatever. And certainly, yeah, it just kind of, I mean, all that stuff was a collage, you know.
So it was important for me to show to the drummer, hey, yeah, that's happening, but you must look at that as a paint stroke, not
Right,
necessarily something that you have to hit,
right,
because if you start hitting it, it changes the whole feeling of the record, which is a much longer
right,
loop of rhythmic uh, information. So, like I said, it was really a good. I was the best person to do it, other than the guys who actually made the records. You know, Eric Sadler, if I remember, was the bass player. So he would have been the only one who would have been better than me doing, being the band leader. But he had long since left that situation. So yeah, so there's no click track. You need someone to understand how the records flow. So you take "Fight the Power" for example,
sure,
which is the band's most notable song. The drum track implies this: 2, 3, 4, boom. I mean, we look at the snare drum part: 3, 4, boom, pop, 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 pop. But the drummer initially was playing, and his name is Mike Faulkner. He's a fantastic drummer. But because he wasn't that familiar with the music, he would play it boom, bap, boom, bap, 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 boom, bap, bap, bap. So every snare stroke was the same volume.
right.
can't do that. You've got to
Right.
bring boom, bop, 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 boom, bop,
Right.
bop, bop, bop. And that creates a hole in the
Right.
groove that's extremely funky that the listener then fills in with their own funk.
Right.
When a listener can fill in a musical experience with their own interpretation instead of being bowled over by, well, this is what it is, this is what it is. When they can invest like that, you're giving them an opportunity to become a real appreciator of your music. And you have to make records and have made records and understand why records work to know that. And the drummer wasn't aware of that. The guys in Public Enemy weren't aware of that, other than
Right.
probably Eric, probably.
Yeah.
So I had to fight some of the guys in Public Enemy to stop interrupting me when I'm trying to instruct the drummer on how to play it, you know? So it was a hard job, you know?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So what are you hearing on stage?
He's hearing
You
the
know,
playback of the record.
you're hearing
If
playback.
we want,
So
if we want,
who's controlling that? Is Johnny Juice, the
no,
DJ, kind of in charge
no.
of playback? No,
At the
he's
time, it was when I joined. It was DJ Lord. He's now
okay.
performing with Cypress Hill. Um, he would he would he would determine when the playback started, but what we heard, the volume of what we heard, came from our monitor people.
Uh-huh.
So the monitors had to be loud enough for each one of us, depending on how much each one of us wanted to hear, whatever. The monitors had to be at the level where we can hear what the playback is doing and what we're doing.
Hmm.
So I needed to hear what the drummer was doing, and I needed to hear myself. The guitar player, I needed to hear less, okay, because he was mostly playing stuff that didn't exist on the records, you know. So, so we're hearing the playback in our own
Hmm.
and our own records too.
Yeah. Yeah. I should say, if anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat, and I'll try to check in there on a regular basis. But if maybe somebody on the Space Age team wants to flag me when there are questions in case I miss it. So okay, so now you're playing drums. Um, are there always samples up top, or is there always a beat that precedes what you're doing, or do you get a 4-click, or are you expected to sort of magically intuit when to come in and
There are a number of reasons why we're not doing the things that you'd expect would happen, like the things you just suggested. There are a number of reasons why, because I've brought these things up. I'm not the band leader now. Okay,
right?
when I left in 2011, and so when I left, I was touring with Public Enemy, and I was working and touring with Bootsy Collins.
Right.
So I was fortunate that I only missed one Public Enemy gig during those things. But during that time, by 2011, it had just become a bit much for me, and I left the PE thing. I started I started working. I think I started working with Fred Schneider around that time. Then
You
eventually
produced his
started.
album, right? Fred Schneider from the
We,
B-52s
right, it's an album we're doing together. It hasn't been released yet, and I started working with Stuart Copeland too,
from the
from the
Police.
Police. So
Yeah.
having albums worth of material with him. It's just he and I. But my schedule has been such that it's almost impossible to complete anything while I'm trying to do all the things that keep coming in. So when I left, then the guitar player became the band leader. When he left, uh, more recently, Johnny Juice came in, and
Yeah.
Johnny Juice was involved in the early records more so than anybody had any idea for a long time. So Terminator X was the name, that was the iconic image and blah blah blah. But Johnny Juice did a lot of what people refer to as that historic turntablism
Right.
on those, particularly on that second record.
Yeah.
That really dope stuff was Johnny Juice. He was a kid at the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
so he's now back, and he's the band leader and the
Okay.
DJ.
Oh, right on.
So what it would take to, based on how the setup is, um, instead of trying to explain it all, the answer is no. I don't get a 4 count. I don't get a 4 count. I don't get any. I don't need any additional clicking because my timing's good. I know what I'm playing up against.
Right.
It's like playing with another musician. I can stay in time with that. Um, uh, so it's easy, but then again, it comes back to what I said. Chuck was very lucky when he got me as the bass player the first time because of how familiar I was with the records. So apparently, when I got the call to come back, I wasn't planning. I wasn't planning on going back to Public Enemy. I got a lot of shit to do. But the call came to me in June of last year that they needed to shift. They needed to get away from the drummer they had, and the bass player. It didn't work out with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a call and was told that my name came up in a meeting, and it was said that, well, Hardgroove is the only person who knows this music as well as any of us. So ask him if he would come back, but if he would come back on drums, because that's the position he needed replaced. They didn't need the bass player position replaced. Right. So I said, well, how did Chuck know that I even played drums? Because I'd never talked about me playing drums. But then when I talked to him about it afterwards, he reminded me that he and I had gone to an event in New Jersey at the house of DST. I think he calls him DST. He was the DJ that did Rocket with Herbie Hancock.
Oh, right on, yeah.
So there was an event
the
in his
original.
House.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chuck and I went, and Chuck said, Hardgroove, you sat down, you played the drums, you were killing it. I do not remember that at all. I have no memory of that. And I never have, and I still don't do drugs. Okay? The most drugs I got is when I got the operation yesterday.
Right.
But I didn't remember that. So Chuck knew, he remembered that. And he said, well, can you ask Hardgroove to come back on drums? And my answer, well, first thing, just more about me. I think you might know this, Jeff, and by now, Pete would know this. Being that that call to join Public Enemy to begin with was a serious adjustment in my trajectory at the time. I was on a good path to begin with, but that was a hyper boost. So I always felt, and I still always feel, I owe it to him. I owe Chuck for that. And so when they called saying, could you come back and do this? I realized they needed the help. So I would have said yes under any circumstances, just because that's the least I could do for Chuck. You know what I mean? So I came back to do this huge festival in Italy last year, and signed on to do the run of shows they had with Guns N' Roses across Europe. So we did that, and we did some solo PE shows, but I'd only committed to the end of the year to do it. And then before the year ended, some other dates came in, and he said, well, we might just talk about us doing Guns N' Roses in the States. And I'm like, well, that could work out simply because I have a new group with DMC, and doing promotion from the road of that, being on the road with PE and Guns N' Roses, that could be good business. So for me, it was like, okay, well, if I end up doing the Guns N' Roses gig, I'll commit to doing more shows with the band. So that turned out to be right. And so now I'm going to be doing another summer of shows with PE and Guns N' Roses.
They just keep pulling you back in, man.
So was it Al Pacino?
So you're playing on stage. You've got in-ears. You've got the tracks coming through there. You are intuiting your position within the groove. What does that mean to not be playing with a click? I mean, it seems like things can be more interactive. I mean, you could conceivably have sections where you're leading it in, where there's a middle 8 that could be a middle 16 or whatever. It's not necessarily like locked, like preset on stage. It's much more organic in that way. Am I reading it wrong? Like, how does that
No,
work?
you're right. 'Cause you're a player, so you're
Yeah,
asking the right questions. You're asking the right questions for the right reasons. Um, the First of all, when I see these videos of folks, you know, with these great drum setups, blah blah, and then they're also putting in the video what they're hearing. They're letting you hear
yeah.
the click and stuff.
Click, click,
They're
click, click.
basically showing off that they can stay in time. That's basically what they're
Yeah.
showing off.
Well,
Okay, so it's fine. It's not.
which
But
may or may not have to do with the groove of staying in time. I mean, you and I remember all those early records of there's no clicks. Yeah,
an awful experience to hear
yeah,
that. It's bad enough to listen to that when you have to do a recording.
right,
For me, it's bad
right.
enough, but I understand why that's there. And it's there for the same reasons in live situations because the live experience is less and less organic, not just for the players, but even for the audience. Okay, I'll digress for 30 seconds. I'm a huge Clash fan.
Sure.
Okay, and I recently sent Chuck a text telling him that I was just about to connect him and Joe Strummer like a couple of weeks before Joe died.
Oh,
Okay, and so I've been just listening to Clash for the last week, and for as many flaws as you'll hear in a Clash performance, and even on some of the early records before they really got their thing dialed in for London Calling, um, there's organic shit going on
uh-huh.
that you can hear and rehear, and then hear something else in it 10 years later.
Yeah,
That doesn't exist when everything is exactly, exactly,
right.
exactly. It doesn't exist. It's one of the reasons I don't. Once I saw Rush for the first time, I saw them on a Monday, then I saw them on a Tuesday, and I love those guys. And I was fortunate enough to meet Getty and Alex, but I realized I couldn't go to see them more than twice, because it was exactly the same thing every night. But
Uh,
that's what the audience was looking for.
right.
So I don't critique it. Their
Yeah,
audience is looking for that orchestral performance.
right,
I, on the other hand, am a huge Police fan.
right.
So Police's third
Just
album blew up at the same time Moving Pictures blew up
yeah,
by Rush. And I saw them both at Madison Square Garden.
yeah,
And a Police performance is different night to night. Now
yeah.
the
Just
songs hold up. The hooks
yeah,
are there. So
yeah.
all we have to do is do a version of the hook that people want. But between that, the Police had as many musicians digging them as Rush did. And
Yeah,
Rush is considered a musician's band, but
right.
so is the Police.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So with Public Enemy, I digress for more than 30 seconds. I'm sorry. But with Public Enemy, not having a click allows me to add interpretation that does make a difference because I'm in the driver's seat and I know what the rhythm is doing and I know how certain fills or certain ways to close the a chorus that is not on the recording. I know how much impact I can have with that on drums. And having a
Mhm.
click in the way, it's like I don't need it. Everything else is keeping me in time. Everything else, they're all subdivisions. Why do I need to hear? I can
Right.
stay in time without that. I view it like playing with a band. If you have good timing, you can play with people who have bad timing and
Mhm.
make them sound good.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so so that's how I approach. It's not a hassle at all.
Mm.
It's much better than having a click.
Mhm. I want to kind of zoom out and talk about stagecraft in general and sort of performing and connecting with the audience and putting together a show. And it's also especially interesting because you've stood in two different places or sat in two different places on the stage. With the bass you can walk right up to the front of the stage. With the drums you're a little bit back further. I mean, what's it like to connect with the audience, and what does that mean to put together a show with a group like PE? I mean, I played large stages in the past, and it's interesting how different it is than playing a small club. That there's a lot more pantomime that goes on. There's a lot more trust in the sound people and stuff like that because you can't hear things as well on a big stage as you
Mm-hmm.
can on a at CBGB or something like that. But
Which is where my
talk
presence.
to me about like what goes into your mind as you're thinking about you know putting together the show.
Okay. Well, this is a short 15, 10-second diversion. You mentioned CBGBs. That's my first professional gig was at CBGBs. So
That's an
yeah.
experience. It's part of history.
Traumatic as it was.
Just to use the bathroom at CBGB's is part of history.
So you've been there.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
A lot.
I played CB's. I played CB's a lot in the '90s,
Okay.
and yeah, when Hilly was still alive, his dog was still alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hilly took me out to lunch. And that was a great experience. So anyway, so what you asked is a great question, which I love to answer. As the bass player in Public Enemy, I was part of the front line. It was myself, Chalk Flavor, and Kari, the guitarist. So I'm interacting with the audience at different times on my side of the stage, but I also keep the lip of the stage clear for Chuck and Flavor to always go in front of me. And I never put together the shows. I had never had anything to do with putting the shows together, and I
Mhm.
still don't.
Yeah.
Um, um, I would like to have more input on that, but they do it their way. So the experience of playing with them as the bassist was in a support role that didn't have as much influence other than visually.
Right.
Okay, I brought a visual thing that was useful for the group. Okay, and so I was the bass player in the band and the band leader, making sure everything was in step.
Right. Holding it down.
As the drummer, it's a completely different situation, and for reasons that are everyone will really understand. When I came back, we were playing now with a band that's got one of the largest tours going on the planet. Guns N' Roses is playing, nothing less than 50, 60,000 people a night, wherever they're going, in Europe. And it's going to be the same thing here in the States. So I'm not the bass player, I'm the drummer. And when I joined, I was the only musician on stage
In as bass when you were playing
as the
bass.
drummer. As the
Oh,
drummer.
as the drummer. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
came,
Right.
I came
Yeah, I
back,
noticed that when I saw you on Kimmel. It was you and Juice were
but
the
here's the
back.
thing:
Yeah.
the audience generally can always and will always question. A lot of people are always going to question. Well, what's the DJ really doing? Now I know he's doing a whole lot of shit, but because they can't see it, and you can fake what you think you're hearing, a lot of people will probably write that off as, well, maybe he's doing it, maybe he's not. Now you take that in front, you take that culture, that rap culture in front
Hmm.
of an audience that is there to see their favorite players. Okay, the Guns N' Roses audience, which
Oh,
we which
sure.
we primarily
Well,
played
yeah.
in front of, across Europe. You've got singers who love Axl. You've got
Right.
bass players who love Duff. You got guitarists who love Slash. You know, and
Yeah.
you've got drummers who love the drummer's playing with him now. I can't remember his name. Sweet guy, but most of that fan base would be into what was the drummer's name? And then the Norwegian guy came in. Forget the drummer's names. Matt Sorum
Oh,
famously
sure.
took
Yeah.
over
Yeah. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
but anyway, so you have people, you have fans who are there to watch musicians play. So we're on stage, and it took me to. We had done a number of shows. Then I was reviewing one of the shows after the show in Poland. I was watching footage the show in Poland, and I realized I got an answer to a question I had, like why were people staring at me?
Because
Okay,
they're
during
drummers,
the
right?
show,
Yeah.
during the show, because I was the only person who was actually playing anything.
Yeah.
Okay, Now
Yeah,
Johnny
sure.
Juice
Well, you
is
are the performance. I mean, that sort of
yes,
human nature to follow along, with the to feel it in your body, you relate to the action that's happening on stage. And as a drummer, that's it. I mean, the singer sings and people feel that too. They relate to that. They sing along, but the drummer's expressing, is the indication of the
right,
performance. Yeah.
right. And you're talking about an audience who generally does not know any of Public Enemy's music.
Right.
So they're tolerating the band because we're opening up for the band
Guns
they
N'
came to
Roses.
see.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah.
our job is to not get booed, okay,
Hmm.
and not get shit thrown at us. Now, given the time period we're in, people are curious about this band of Public Enemy who was always talking about social issues. So we're
Hmm.
going to get that grace to be heard because at the very least, people know the song "Fight the Power" existed.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm looking at the footage in Poland. I'm like, oh, this is why they're looking at me that way because everyone's looking at me.
Mm.
The bass players in the audience are watching me. The guitarists, the keyboard players, the drummers, all the musicians are watching me because I'm the one person they can relate. They can all relate to.
Hmm.
And like I said, as much stuff as Johnny Juice does to keep the momentum going, they can always write that off as well. They don't know if he's really doing it or not.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
They don't
Well, and
know
that's
that.
always the problem with that turntablism stuff. I mean, you look at those, like, those shows in the 90s, and there were just cameras above, Qbert and these guys doing
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
their thing to show you. Even you go to NAM and there's cameras over them
Mm-hmm.
doing, and it's amazing what they're doing, but it's not as presented to the audience
Right.
inherently as the drums or even the guitars. I mean, the fact that you play the guitar and it's aiming at the audience. It's funny. I started out as a keyboard player in the 80s, and I spent a couple of bands, standing at the back of the stage playing, getting kind of bored, not moving, and then I was like, I got to start playing other instruments because I want to
Mm-hmm.
connect more,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and because it's these horizontal instruments don't relate as well sometimes, but this is
yeah,
part of the staging as well. So
yeah.
so talk to me about kind of the role, like you've got screens on stage, you've got camera people on stage probably running around capturing it and putting stuff up, but like what role do those screens play in the performance, and how much are you aware of that when you're performing? How does that work? I mean, because
Yeah,
I also know that there's sometimes this thing of like, you're doing something on stage and sometimes people really react and sometimes they don't, and then you find out, oh, it was because it was on the screen and that's why people were reacting.
yeah, yeah.
uh
Um, I I'm completely unaware of what's happening on the screens behind me.
uh
I always forget it's there, and that's a good thing. I
yeah,
always
yeah,
forget it's there for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't program any of it, so I don't
yeah,
know what's coming. Um, and um, uh, and because there's nothing reflective in front of me. There's nothing
right,
in front of me that's reflecting any, it's easy to forget that any of
right,
that's even happening back there. But how important is it? I think it's extremely important that it's happening, especially if the messaging is coming across. Now, like I said, I don't program any of it, and I don't know who makes the decisions. I don't know if it's the guy who's actually projecting and editing. I don't know how much Chuck has to do with that or Flavor has to do with that. But I look at the shows after the fact, and the fact that there's anything moving behind the group that at least keeps you current with what
right.
people expect in a
And
live
that's all
setting.
coming from front of house. You've got a whole crew, right? I mean, you've got,
Mhm.
sound person you tour with,
Yeah, and he
and
connects
probably
with the
visuals
staff.
as well. Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
connects with the people in, and then he controls it all from his laptop.
yeah, yeah. Right on. Well, I want to talk about your new group, with Daryl McDaniels, DMC from Run DMC, and Johnny Juice. Tell me about what that is. It's called Freedom, and
Yeah,
how it came together.
yeah. You can get it by going to freedomonyourside.com, so you can get it. Because that'll take you to they'll take you to our site that's run by the management team, the management company, which is a worldwide entertainment group. And then the links to where you can download the song are all there. But the video is there too, which is done by the amazing Pete Christopher. Fantastic, fantastic work, E.T. I'm not just saying that. He'll tell you how many times I've told him how, like, I'm just like, man, I didn't have to do a thing. I didn't. It's like anything he did, I just loved it. I'm like, yo, this is my man. So and you can buy merch there. How it came together was really kind of simple. Juice and Daryl, or DMC, they've known each other for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl and I only got acquainted in recent years, and he and I lived literally
I was
two
gonna say you
blocks
grew up in
away
the
from
same
each other.
neighborhood, right? Yeah.
Not just the same neighborhood, 2 blocks away from each other. Okay, in New York City, blocks are not that big. And in Queens, they're not that big. So anyway, we literally live 2 blocks away from each other. Even when uh, Run DMC blew up huge, I didn't know him. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know him. But to be fair to myself, I was big into fusion and the Police and stuff like that more. And a lot of the rap stuff didn't move me at the time. So Juice and Daryl have been working on a project together, and with another guy, bass player. And then Juice asked me if I would consider doing some recording with them. I said, sure. So we started doing some recording, and then I brought in this extra element, as I always do. It's like, okay, if we're going to do this, let's set it up so that it can be profitable, you know? So I brought in my PR person, Caroline Galloway, who has a really great connection with Hard Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And things started moving quickly, and Hard Rock laid out like 8 shows for us that we were going to do cross country, playing from the East Coast into NAMM that year. And that's when we got a sense of how much Daryl at the time could not commit. He couldn't commit to all of that so quickly. And he was honest about it. And he said, just getting out of the whole Run DMC thing, blah, blah, blah. I'm not that excited to get into a situation that's moving this quickly, blah, blah, blah. So he just pulled back on it and left it for a minute. Then we play Public Enemy played at a big festival in New Jersey called See Here Now Festival. And Daryl came and performed with us. We did Walk This Way and Tricky. And as I walked into the trailer, it was a festival with a whole bunch of bands on it. As I walked into the trailer, Daryl said, he made me, the first thing I heard was, yo, is that Hardgroove? So I was walking onto into the space before I walked in the trailer. So he says, is that Hardgroove? As soon as I get into the trailer, he says, yo, B, we got to get that song out. We got to get that song. It's the song called I'm On Your Side. He said, we got to get that out, man. And I'm like, okay. So after the show, I went back to my hotel and I listened to the tune. And I realized, man, it's like he wrote this yesterday. And, because all the ice raids and all that shit was happening at that point.
Yeah.
And when he wrote it, that wasn't happening. Okay. But, let's face it, this country was always on the path to shit like that happening. So,
So either
when
the
I went back
pendulum's swinging one way or it's swinging the other.
yeah, when I went back to listen to it, I said, man, this does have to come out now. And I had a lot of stuff that's, I'm looking over here because my computer and stuff over there, stuff that's been on my desk metaphorically that really needs to be done. But I realized this song needs to get out now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made it that night in the hotel, I made getting that song out my priority. So I called Juice and I called Daryl And I said, this is what I think we should do, just to make sure I'm not putting Daryl in a situation like I did the first time.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said, let's put something together, but he can really get. But he said, no, I could do this. And so I worked on the track some more because he had already cut the vocal. He didn't have to do anything. But I redid a lot of the guitars on it, not all of it. I just re-upped my deal with Gibson. I have a
Mhm.
really great relationship with Gibson. So they sent me the one Les Paul I didn't have, which you can see.
You
Yeah,
like those sunbursts?
yeah,
You,
tobacco, yeah. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I need PDFs. I'm sorry, PDF. Um, um, what do you call them?
PAFs. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I wanted. So I got this. I got this Les Paul with PAFs. So thank you to Elizabeth Height over at Gibson. She's a sweetheart. Um, and so I re-recorded the guitars, and then we uh, shot footage. And I mixed the record. No, I didn't even mix it yet. Shot footage against a rough mix at Times Square at Hard Rock at Times Square. Shot
Oh,
the
okay.
video of Daryl there. Juice shot the video of himself at his studio upstate New York, and I shot my stuff here at a place called Santa Fe Stockyards, directed by Zay Santos, who's the owner, and Simon Kinney directed uh, this Daryl's footage. So anyway, we
Hmm.
got all the footage shot. I went in and started mixing the record. You and I did Nam. No, the video was done before that.
Yeah, the
Um,
video you got finished just before NAM. You were also mixing it on the lead up to NAM.
yeah,
Yeah, there was a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
happening. Yeah.
I'm trying to think how I got to you guys. I mean, it was certainly you that hit me to
Well, when
Pete.
you came to us, we were talking about doing NAM. You'd mixed the song, and you were looking to kind of express it visually.
Mhm.
And we're thinking about like a lyric video or something along those
Yeah,
lines.
yeah.
And that's when Pete came in and helped
Okay.
put that together. Yeah.
So Pete knocked it out of the park, and
Pete knocked it out of the park.
yeah, yeah, and then
Good
I
source material.
was that.
Great source material.
Well, I appreciate that, but then your humility is not going to work here right now. It's just great stuff. Uh, and additionally, great because I know myself. I've done music videos. I've had the pleasure of conceiving of and directing a music video that played on MTV Japan for a short while, but it did. You know, so I know what I speak when I know somebody's doing great work, and but more important than it being great work, a lot of people do great work, but Pete was doing stuff that moved me, and that's what mattered. Whether it was great, because I've had great work done that I didn't like, okay, but Pete's way of hearing it and thinking about it, it was just the shit I liked. This is what I liked. So when I saw his initial draft, which is not a whole lot different from what it ended up being ultimately, I mean, he did do some changes. I'm like, yo, this is it. And simultaneously, I said to myself, I got to figure out how to keep working with this dude. Because if I don't have to do the work that I know he did, that's going to free me up to do this shit I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? So, so we got the video done. So the video was done. Record was mixed before we even got a deal. Before we got the deal offer. And that's a good way to go into a situation like that. So the company was moved. I was literally told, this is a home run, you know? And I'm like, okay, great. To have a company behind it that feels that about it, then that's good. That's a company to roll with. So that's how it happened. And, I signed on with WEG, Worldwide Entertainment Group, Dave Laurie's company. Great, great folks.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I want to.
WWEG.com, I think it is.
I want to. I want to open it up to questions if anybody's got questions. And I don't see any questions in the channel yet, but if anybody is here or wants to unmute their camera and jump in, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I will start channeling questions from the universe.
You've been asking great questions, so let's keep going.
Thanks. Well, it's not me, it's the universe, man. Pete, did you have a question? Or you're I see you, but
I was kind of curious what the plan was for doing some live shows with the group and things like that.
We had a couple of attempts at getting some performances before the record was available. And that was based on a lot of the excitement that everybody had about getting the record out. But for me, it was a matter of making sure that we get the messaging correct and have the right tool to invite people in. For example, there was a desire that everyone uses their social media accounts to bring people to it. Well, yeah, that's an easy thing to do, but not necessarily all the people who were friends of mine on my social media accounts would necessarily be into freedom, just musically, because my associations are quite broad. So it became about messaging, which I felt everyone needed to be patient about. And I said, so yes, yeah, okay. Well, let me answer your question, Pete. Yes, and I said, well, let's prioritize Jimmy Kimmel because Pete had just done Jimmy Kimmel. Caroline has a great relationship with his staff. I said, we'll prioritize Kimmel because I knew I had these surgeries coming up, and I knew that I had to have the surgery and not antagonize the healing, to be able to do the runs with PE and GNR.
what are they telling you? How long do you need to stay off the drums?
No, I'll be okay in about 2 weeks. I'll be able to, So, but I said to Caroline, well, look, if you get Kimmel, I'll do it because I won't play drums. I'll play bass because I can play less notes and blah, blah, blah. So I'll play bass for the Kimmel show. And, but we were too close in to the release date, so we couldn't get Kimmel. So now performances should wait until I get this oddcast up and running and getting the word out. Getting the word out the way it needs to get out. So understandably, the management company wants it to do it one way. And it's what they want to do is the right way for any other group, not for this one. And it's because of where we are right now as a country. Pete knows the lyrics for this song probably better than I do. Okay. And so he knows what this song is about. He doesn't have to know what Darryl was thinking when he wrote it. He doesn't have to know what he was thinking, but he can make a really good guess about what Darryl was thinking when he wrote it. And this speaks to an ongoing issue we've had in America. But Darryl is well loved across the spectrum. Everybody loves Darryl. And it's hard to not like the guy, And
I met him. He's a nice guy.
Yeah. And he's part of a group. He's part of a group that has changed music history culture.
Oh, man.
I mean, music culture around the globe. Run DMC changed that. Not just for Black kids. It changes for everyone. That connection with them and Aerosmith. Okay, that said a lot of things that the industry didn't even want to say. Okay, and that our news media didn't want to say, didn't want to admit, didn't want to acknowledge. So we find ourselves in a place now where that same singular voice is now working with a group with that has that as have worked with members of a group that has the exact same pedigree that's actually punched through, even when the media didn't want to hear it, punched through because the timing of the Spike Lee movie and the messaging and all the shit that was going on.
Right.
So I said to everyone, this is a timing issue. We can rush to put things out, blah, 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 blah. But if you don't get the responses because the timing isn't right, you didn't get the messaging right. So now, so the record is available, okay? And there's been some downloads, small, but and the video hasn't been seen that much on YouTube. And that is not a problem for me. If my messaging had started and I was pumping on all cylinders, I'd be depressed by the results. But that, and I had to say this in one of the management meetings. I said, look, when someone mentioned, well, we have to keep up the momentum. I said, momentum hasn't begun yet. I said, the record is available. And that's the one thing that always trips people up. Having momentum and then the record gets delayed. That's a problem. But having a record out, then the momentum can start as slow as it needs to or as quickly as it needs to. This way is better, okay? So now we might not do a performance as a group until October. But where might that performance be? It might be at the big gig that Tom Morello just set up. Okay? Because Daryl is on that gig. Daryl's going to be performing with Tom. Daryl and Tom and Juice have a song with Tom's son. They're going to want to promote that at that show, probably. And Daryl has a song with us. This is the best place for the group to debut. If we can work that out, because we're not on the bill as Freedom. But I'm saying he has a flexibility. If we could just play the song once, that's great, But by then, there needs to be enough momentum through my podcast and everyone who picks it up and collaborates and rebroadcasts it. By then, we need to have the momentum of what I want to build so that it really matters. Okay, this group, we heard about that, we downloaded the record. This is what, and they were at this big function. Even if we didn't play the song, I need to be seen by then as not just a drummer in Public Enemy, but one of the primary members of Freedom. And that's, you can't get a management to come to me to think like that if they don't know all the facts. And all the facts are coming from me. So I'm trying to just get everyone to understand. So it's an extremely, extremely exciting time for me. And it further illustrates what I've said about Pete's work. It's something that doesn't have to be done, that I didn't have to do, and it stands up, it holds up. It's as explosive visually as the song is. And so having assets in place that can do work like that without having $1 million budget, I consider myself extremely fortunate.
Yeah. Well, when you're gigging, let us know. We can hop in and put together Visibox show for your
that'd be great.
Make sure it's spectacular. So again, sort of channeling questions here, and it's also occurring to me, like, I think the Discord has its challenges. We'll leave it at that. But I think the event for this might still be scheduled for 1 p.m. Eastern, which we're just coming up on now. I was sure I set that to noon, and hopefully people aren't coming in late. But
if they're coming in late,
continue on, and let me just repeat: if people have questions or thoughts, jump in. If you in the upper right hand corner of this general voice channel, there's a little chat bubble that says "Show Chat," and if you click on that, you can show the chat and jump in there with your questions and thoughts, and we can either jump to you and put you on camera or ask the question for you. But Brian, this is kind of a generic question, but and a difficult one, but I know things have changed a lot since you and I, for that matter, were kind of upcoming in the industry. But I know you've kind of worked with kids on different levels, and have some experience with kind of looking at up and comers. And I'm curious, like, what advice you have for people in that position. Like, what are your thoughts and sort of mantras, like what are your kind of guiding principles that you feel like have kind of led you to where you are now, performing full-time as a musician of some note on big stages with big audiences? And what do you attribute getting there to?
Okay, well, I think I hear a couple of questions in there, so I'll answer the
There's
one
a bunch.
that you
I'm
just gave me.
spreading them out
Yeah.
so you can answer however you like.
All right, let me sweep them in.
Yeah.
Uh, 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 I think the best way to attempt to answer it is to explain how I got on this course, and I'll make it quick. I won tickets at 14 years old to see Earth, Wind, and Fire. Okay, at that time, I wanted to be a police officer because I felt then, as I feel now, as I know now, that being a police officer is a noble profession in the hands of the right people. It's a noble profession, okay, if they're doing it for the right reason. So I was going into it with mentally the right reason. I wanted to be helpful. I won tickets in 1974. Earth, Wind, and Fire they'd just gotten to the point where they can play at an arena in a metropolitan area, like Atlanta, New York, D.C., Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston. They could play big arenas and places like that. Still in smaller markets, they would play at theaters, And so they played at the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island. I went to see them, and I had what we call an epiphany. I realized over time that I remember saying to myself, I could do this. I want to do this. I should do this. After that point, I was just an average music lover like anybody else. I wasn't playing any music or anything. And I realized that if I do this and I do this kind of art, I can do for other people what it's doing for me. This kind of stuff makes me feel positive. It would keep people on a more positive road. If I was going to be a police officer, I'd be dealing with people after they've been victimized, or I'd be dealing with somebody after they've committed a crime. It's too late in both of those situations, And so I felt doing music would be more useful. So I've been on that course, never strayed from it. That's how I got on it. Okay, so I can answer that question: how I got there. What do I try to do to inspire people when I talk to them? I tell them that story I just told you. I give them an insight on what my character is. And so if you have that same character trait of wanting to quote unquote do good, and you're doing music, see if you can find a way to use your love for music to do good. You're not obligated to do it, but that's what I did. So if you're asking to sit down and talk to me, pick my brain, for over a cup of coffee or lunch, that's what I'm going to tell you. Well, that's what drove me here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
I mean, it's one thing to want to be rich and famous, but that won't get you there. You need sort of a higher purpose. You need sort of a deeper motivation, and hopefully one that's doing good to keep you on track. Yeah.
a person of quality, yeah. Now everybody thinks they're a person of quality, okay, but not many people feel that they're needed in the world and that they can do anything, and that's not true. Everyone can do something to push the dial in some way, and the dial doesn't have to be pushed so much that the whole world saw it, which means you're famous. Pushing
Mhm.
the dial a little bit and no one ever saw it, but you saw it, that shit matters.
Mhm.
Because there's a whole bunch of pushing those dials that one person grabbed to that became famous.
Mhm.
But everybody pushing a dial matters. So understanding that's very important. So there are a lot of people, the music, all the people who are trying to get into music. Well, if you want to be in the music business today, you're in it because of all the assets that can
Open an
make you,
Instagram account and there you go. Yeah.
you're basically in it. But a lot of people want to be rich and famous, like I said. There's nothing wrong with securing your financial future, present and future. What comes along with that is whatever you did to get there. So if you spent most of your day showing 90% of your cleavage, chest and butt cleavage, you have to remember that's going to follow you for the rest of the time.
Mm.
And if you did, if guys did something equally stupid, that shit's going to follow you. And if that's what you want, if that's the price you're willing to pay for that, fine. But those of us who want to see it change, who have skin, especially those of us who have skin in the game, I consider skin in the game having children. That's what
Mhm.
skin in the game is to me. My
Mm.
wife and my daughter. The things I do artistically, I want to inspire people. And if those people are inspired, they're less likely to want to rob my wife or my daughter after listening to my music. You know what I'm
Making the world a
saying?
better place. Yeah.
Make
Yeah.
it as simple as that. Simple as
Yeah.
that. And so I try to share that I do share that with people when I'm asked. Now I have a meeting coming up with Jerry Cohen from Ben and Jerry's.
Ah,
He put his money where his mouth is.
yeah.
The people that took over Ben and Jerry's are fucking it up
Yeah.
in his mind. And but he's also doing stuff independently now. And so he and I are going to meet, I think before the week is over, to discuss how we can work together because
Ah.
he's using his music,
Mhm.
ice cream, this product, that's his art.
Yeah.
He's using that to fight the battle the way he can fight it. I'm using
Mhm.
music to fight it the way I can fight it. Merging a well-loved product like his, even though it won't be Ben and Jerry stuff,
Right.
and music, which most people love, um, we'll come up with something really cool. That's who I roll with. I don't roll with folks who have an idea that could just make us all a whole bunch of money if it's not saying something. You
So
know,
you're talking about relationships, you're talking about connections, you're talking about, I feel like it's a cynical word, but networking, connecting with people,
mm-hmm.
building resources and capabilities out there. Yeah, good
And to
stuff.
me, networking is not a cynical word. Some people network
Well,
with
people tend to
cynical
sort of exploit
motivation.
it, when you kind of forget the humanity in all of that. Like
Well,
networking is an opportunity to connect and connect humanly, but
we're networking right now,
yeah,
okay? And whoever is joining is part of this networking, and its intentions are noble.
yeah,
So yeah.
Agreed.
yeah. Cool. So, yeah, everybody should definitely go check out Freedom on your side. You've got this new Oddcast podcast. Where will people find that? Will that be on the?
It's not live yet. It's not live
It's
yet. I'll
not
let
live
you
yet.
know. It's not,
Maybe
yeah.
link it off the Freedom website eventually,
Certainly will.
and people can go sign up. There's a mailing list, join the movement kind of thing
Yeah.
on the Freedom website. There's a new Earth, Wind, and Fire documentary coming out, like in the next
Oh
couple
yeah.
weeks.
I didn't know
Amir
that.
did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
When's
yeah.
that come out?
Questlove did. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
When's it come out?
soon. Like 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from
Mm.
when we recorded this, in June 2026 is when it'll be coming out.
It's a Netflix thing,
I
or is it a
think
film?
so. Yeah. I know it came across my radar. I'm just did a quick search for it. HBO documentary. There you
Okay.
go.
The Earth, Wind, and Fire. I mean, they literally changed my life path.
Yeah.
Literally, his music was uplifting. It was popular. It was I mean, it was popular. That's how I knew they existed. But it motivated me. It motivated me. It's like it reminded me that being a good person was worth being a good person. You
Yeah.
know, and not that I ever had any challenge with that, but being a good person can, can inspire people.
Yeah.
And they just killed it.
Yeah.
But the one regret I have about someone I haven't met is one of the regrets is not having met Maurice White.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, passed away.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Have you met any of the other guys in that band?
I'm sorry.
Have you met any of the other Earth,
Yeah,
Winds, or Fires?
yeah, I met Philip Bailey, the
Sure.
strong solo guy, Verdine White, bass player, Maurice's brother, and Ralph Johnson. They're the three original members left.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I met them all on Long Island at a concert some years ago. So it's cool.
Well, try to channel questions from the universe. See if we've got anything else for you.
Yeah, take your time.
I'm thinking about our user base. We've got a lot of just people who are putting together shows. Are there any kind of like rules that you've sort of put together for yourself about being on stage and sort of how that is to be on stage? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a bit of a different world sometimes with different rules. How do you feel like you conduct yourself there? Again,
Mm-hmm.
sort of random abstract question, but
No. I like that. I like that question because I usually try to find a reason to say what I'm going to say right now.
yeah,
The stage is a place of honor. I don't
sure,
care what kind of music you're playing. Doesn't matter. Now, I'm a huge punk fan. I love Clash is one of my all-time favorite bands. Um, um, I really never mind the Bullocks, by Sex Pistols.
sure,
One of the greatest records ever made.
yeah,
Okay, but me personally, I can't take John Lydon's behavior
yeah,
because he's unnecessarily rude.
yes,
Okay, that works when you're fighting back against people not taking you seriously. Then it's justifiable. But if you're looking for a fight, I think that's not a smart thing to do, and you just wouldn't do it walking down the street. So I don't, and like I said, I'll just say it again. That album is one of the greatest records ever made. I love it, and I love what he wrote. But behaviors are important. So on the stage, no matter what kind of music you're playing, you must always remember, even if you have to act brash and
hmm
act seemingly rude,
hmm
remember these people. The most expensive thing you can get out of a person is not the amount of dollars they paid to come see you. It's the fact that they gave you any of their time. Because when you're dead, that's it. You have no more time. I had the surgery yesterday, and I said to myself, because I knew they were going to put me under. I said to myself, I know this is going to knock me out any second now, but I'm going to do my best to remain as conscious as possible and experience this going under. And I didn't know anything until I woke up after that. It
yeah,
just took me out. And it
yeah,
was a good reminder of what death is and what it could be for people. It's like you're gone in an instant. So if someone paid $1,000 to come see you and to come see the same band that I paid $15 to see
uh,
30 years ago, it's like, to me, that's less of a problem than the fact that they spent any of their time being there and you disappointed them with whatever vibration you put up on them, you
yeah.
left on them.
Are
You
you able
know,
to do that on stage? Are you able to stay present? I've kind of been in both places, and certainly the older I've gotten, the more I've felt the sort of gratitude of the situation. I think when you're young, there's sort of a panic in being on stage, and you want to you want to push out, and I think as you get older, you can start to kind of move into yourself and be more present and experience a place of gratitude. I mean, it's certainly gratitude, but it's even deeper than that. It's just sort of like a Zen presence, like you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would add to the word gratitude understanding. As you get older, you understand what's happening.
yeah,
When there's an energy coming from a person or a group of people or a massive tribe of people, okay? Because when you're in a concert, you're in a tribal event. Those
hmm,
people are part of a
sure,
thought process.
yeah, yeah.
You're there as a
Well, it's
collective.
it's hard not to get caught up in that. It's good to get caught up in that, and you're as a drummer, you're leading that. You're literally providing the beat that people are resonating with. But at the same time, you got to remain present and not
Yeah,
give in to
yeah.
the whatever it is, the primal crowd mentality or whatever that is exactly. I mean, it's a good thing that paints it as a bad thing, but it's easy to kind of get outside yourself in a way that's exciting at first, but
But
kind of leaves you a little bit out of control.
what I'm experiencing now is just another version of what I experienced before. Playing in front of big audiences as the bass player in Public Enemy is one thing. I played in front of big audiences with Bootsy.
Sure.
Okay. And I was
Yeah.
one of three bass players. It was three bass players. We were playing three basses at the same time. Okay. And him being one of them. And played in front of big audiences. This time, I'm playing an instrument that's more of my natural position.
Hmm.
Drums is a drummer is what I am. Bass, and I never toured playing guitar, but I play guitar all day. Well, I'll be back to it shortly. Because I compose on guitar. But bass is what I'm known for, and I play it well. But when I sat up on the drums during these shows with Guns N' Roses, I realized that's my natural position. So what comes with the the gratitude is there's an understanding of why this works. So as I explained to you earlier, like I finally figured out why everyone was watching me. Okay, so what I decided to do is I realized there are a lot of people who are not catching the messaging of Public Enemy because they're not there for that. So I need to endear them to me since they're watching me.
Sure.
So then my performances I changed a little bit. One of my favorite people to watch playing drums, two favorite people, Stuart Copeland, and Jerry Gaskill, the drummer from King's X. I
Uh-huh.
love watching Jerry play drums. I just love watching this guy play the drums. So I started taking some of Jerry's moves because they're entertaining. And I realized, okay, I need to entertain this crowd just looking past these two icons and they're watching me. I need to entertain them. So they say, wow, you see how he did that? Da, 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 da. Then
You
there's
juggling
somebody on that
drumsticks and
stage.
that.
I can't do that shit. But then what I'm doing is I'm making sure that at least one person on that stage is walking away with their attention.
Hmm.
Because as powerful as Chuck's thing is and Flavor's thing is, if you're not into it, you'll forget it.
Hmm.
But if I gave them something that was familiar, then I can maybe expect to see them when I'm promoting freedom.
Yeah.
So it's an understanding of why things work
Yeah.
and why I'm there.
It's funny you talk about Johnny Rotten, John Lydon.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about the Clash and Joe Strummer in particular. Like, it's interesting to compare the two of them, and it feels like John Lydon has lived an angry life, and it
Yeah.
is not a very happy human being. I do not know him, but it's kind of hard to ignore, especially in some of the recent interviews. Whereas Joe Strummer, especially along the end, seemed to be just really enjoying what he was doing. He was sort of making more organic music, more songwriterly music and stuff. And I just feel like there's a lesson in there somewhere. Again, I don't know
Yeah.
either of them, but you know, something
Well,
about just,
here's what I think. Here's what I think part of the lesson might be. With John, John is still here with us, so John would be how he is, whether he was in Sex Pistols or not. That's just
yeah,
really who he is. So
yeah,
you said, it seems like he's had an angry life, whatever. So that's just who he is. When you add to that how smart he is,
yeah,
he's an extremely intelligent man.
yeah,
I can't judge why he's the way he is. I'm just saying bringing that into a space that people come to hear something as influential, as powerful as music. Bring that messaging, but don't be so rude to people.
yeah,
That's what I prefer. He does what he believes in to do. Hey, one of my all-time favorite musicians on any instrument is Tony Williams,
uh-huh,
drummer Tony Williams. I walked out on Tony Williams concerts twice. I had front row seats at the bottom line in New York City, very
uh-huh,
small venue.
yeah,
I sat and he was so rude to the audience for whatever reason he was mad, he was upset,
yeah,
whatever it was. I was heartbroken and I left. And
yeah,
I went back to see him the next summer, I think it was, same venue. He did the same thing and I walked out. And he's my most favorite musician on any instrument
yeah,
from then until today.
yeah,
But I couldn't get with how he was being to us. And I
yeah,
left. So now you go to Joe Strummer. Joe died younger than you and I are right now.
sure, yeah,
Okay. So he was a kid compared to where we are now, although he's older than me and you and I. Um, and he broke through. I think what Joe learned was his messaging was important at the time. He also realized that moving the dial requires a whole lot of people getting on with that message, and he was up against it was a daunting thing. They needed people like him in the governments for things to change,
yeah,
and I think he realized that. Okay, I think he realized that, and so he realized he could either spend his whole life pushing against a wave that has more power than him, or look, I planted my seeds. Hopefully, these will bear fruit later. I'm guessing he got there. I
yeah,
certainly hope.
yeah. Yeah, and it's possible to sort of paint yourself into a corner, that feeling of privilege. It's more like not that you're not getting your due, and I'm guessing that's where like Tony Williams and
Yeah.
John Lydon, I'd like that they're
Oh,
not that they don't feel like they're getting what they're due, and
but Jeff, check this out. Check this out. Tony Williams played on the Pill album,
right, yeah,
Public, Public Image Limited, Johnny's
sure,
next
yeah,
project.
yeah,
He
yeah,
played
yeah,
drums on two of
and
those
Ginger
tracks.
Baker. Ginger Baker was on that album
Did he
too,
go
if I
on that?
remember
I didn't
correctly.
know that.
Yeah, it
I know
was like all
Steve Vai was
Steve Vai. Yeah, yeah.
there.
That Public Image album is amazing.
I love that. I
Yeah,
love the first one.
yeah.
As an artist, Johnny is untouchable. As an artist, he just is.
Oh
I
yeah,
love what he does. I
yeah,
love what
yeah,
he does.
yeah. Cool. Well, any other advice for the universe, Brian? Before we wrap up, I apologize
I'm
to
a
anybody
still.
that I apologize to anybody that came in late. We are capturing this, I believe, and assuming that all the capturing worked correctly, we're going to put this up on our YouTube channel and people
Oh,
can
great.
can check it out there. So hopefully everybody will be able to see it there. But any words of wisdom to wrap all this up, Brian?
Well, whatever wisdom I have is wisdom to me. Okay. If anything I say is helpful to you, um, I'm grateful. I'm happy to be able to be a source of opening up positive thoughts. I say, do who you are. It's easy to say that, uh, but it's all you've got. Do who you are, because if it becomes successful, that's what you want to spend your time supporting, who you are, not something you thought you needed to be to become successful. And a lot of successful people say that. Sounds corny, so it sounds old hat, but it's said because they've seen. Some of them say it because they realize they're trapped by shit that they didn't want to be trapped by, or they've seen their friends trapped by it.
Right.
You know, so and when the music business starts screwing you, at least you are okay with it because you did your thing, and not, well, they're screwing me over this thing I really need to be doing anyway. That's a regret I would never want to live with. You know.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's been great working with you, and look forward to more collaboration opportunities in the future. And and thanks for coming on.
I look for Visibox to be a part of Freedom performances. So
Sure.
once we line those up, you and I will be on the horn. You, myself, and Chris will be on the horn talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm
Happy
sorry,
to help.
Pete. I keep Pete Christopher. I keep telling Pete, man, please forgive me if I ever call you Chris. I have so many Chris's in my life.
His doppelganger, Chris Peetstoffer. Yes.
It's my fault for making that so confusing.
I expect the three of us to be working closely together once leading up to Freedom being a live entity.
Yeah.
You know?
Cool. All right. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you on the next office hours. As I mentioned, we do this every month. This was kind of a one-off. We usually do it on the first Monday of every month at 1 p.m. Eastern time. This was on a Tuesday at noon, and that was a little confusing, not only to some people joining, but also apparently to the Discord events calendar, which I tried to change several times. Maybe it didn't get changed correctly, but we're here also, as I mentioned, Visibox you can find at spaceage.tv. If you are a performer, up-and-coming performer, and want to add visuals to your performance, you can use Visibox for backing tracks. You can use Visibox for videos and visuals of all kinds, basically to add some depth and create your own Las Vegas sphere wherever you play. That's our goal. And we've got very active support, and we're happy to answer any of your questions. So reach out, and we will help you realize your musical and visual dreams, and make it all happen. There's a free 2-week trial of Visibox that gives you all of the features of Visibox. You can download it, like I said, spaceage.tv. Try it out for 2 weeks. If you like it, we would love for you to subscribe, and then we can help you with all those things I've talked about. So yeah, spread the word. And thanks again, Brian. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.